Okay, so getting back into our coverage over X-Men comics, leading us up into the Fall of the Mutant storyline, we do pick up with Uncanny X-Men number 219. Now, we're only covering one book because after this story arc, or this one-shot, we jump into two crossovers with the X-Men, two different books where the X-Men must fight against two different teams, the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. Now, with that being said, Uncanny X-Men number 219 is really more about Havoc rejoining the team, but also the idea of the death of the X-Men. And you'll see what I mean as we go through this book. Now, this storyline does pick up where our last Uncanny X-Men video left off at. And remember, when it came to the ending of our last video, Havoc and Polaris found a ship that belonged to the alien race known as the Brood, this very nasty insect race. Now, when it comes to the Brood, the X-Men usually have a hard time dealing with them, but this time they're on Earth, and it could possibly lead to the end of the human race. And so for Havoc, he says he has to warn the X-Men about the Brood. The problem is, when he tries to call the X-Men, nobody is answering, and so he flies over to the mansion. Now, he also knows that around this time, Charles Xavier has stepped down as the headmaster of the school, and Magneto took over. And so technically, Magneto is now the leader of the X-Men. But when he does arrive, he can't find anyone at first, but then he does find the X-Men, except they all appear somewhat creepy, and they begin to surround him, and they begin to do different things to him. Like, for example, Rogue takes his powers away, and you have Psylocke begin to play with his mind. And so you're left to believe at first that Havoc may have run to the X-Men, who are now being controlled by the Brood. And this could be a very horrible thing. But either way, Havoc does pass out. But then you have Havoc wake up, and we kind of find out what we just saw was a dream. Now, when he does wake up, he is confronted by his girlfriend Polaris, of course, the daughter of Magneto. Now, when it comes to their conversation, we get the chance to learn that Havoc did go over to the mansion to check up on the X-Men, and when he arrived, everything was okay, except when he came back home, that was when he began to have that dream over and over and over again. And so we're left to wonder, maybe the X-Men did something to his mind, only because every single time he has that dream, the dream only gets worse. And so he feels like the dream is trying to tell him something. And so he tells Polaris, I have to go back over there to just double check to make sure that the X-Men are truly okay. And so Polaris says, go ahead and go, and he leaves. Now, while he does leave, you do see in the far distance, the Marauders are watching Polaris because she is their next target. Now, remember, the Marauders are a group of mutants who love the idea of killing off other mutants, but we have no idea who the Marauders are truly working for. But either way, they're getting ready to attack Polaris. Now, while you do have Havoc arrive at the mansion, he realized it is abandoned. Now, he does look around for some clues, and he does find Magneto's diary to kind of learn what the X-Men have been up to. Now, while reading it, well, back at home, Polaris is being attacked by the Marauders. Now, Polaris is a very powerful mutant, not really up there with her father Magneto, but still powerful. But she's fighting against 3 or 4 Marauders. It's not a fair battle for her. And so, unfortunately, she's just trying her best to hold off against them. And also, Sabretooth is there. And guys, back in the early days of Marvel Comics, Sabretooth was ruthless. And so Homeboy's all like, I don't care who you are or what power you have. I will just keep coming after you over and over and over again. So get ready to possibly die. Now, thanks to Magneto's diary, when it comes to Havoc, he was able to learn that recently Magneto has joined forces with the Hellfire Club. Now, we already saw that back in our New Mutant video, and so because of that storyline, we know that it's really more Magneto trying to help out the school in different kinds of ways, to also help out the mutant race. Now, once you have Havoc arrive, we also get reminded that Magneto is pretending to be the older cousin of Charles Xavier who had taken over the school, trying to hide his true secret identity from some people, because some folks know that he is Magneto, and to other people, he's just the older cousin of Charles Xavier. Either way, when he does arrive at the Hellfire Club, he does confront Magneto, wanting to know what happened to the X-Men. But when it comes to Magneto, he's not trying to share that information. He just says, listen, the X-Men are okay, they're somewhere else and I can't tell you, but if you have a message, go ahead and give it to me and I'll give it to them. But Havoc still does not trust Magneto, because for many years in X-Men comics, he was their #1 bad guy. Havoc had fought against Magneto a couple times, and so the idea of seeing him now a good guy is still hard to get used to. But either way, you have Magneto say, you don't realize what's happening right now around the world. And he's right. You have all these new kind of groups popping up left and right. X Factor, the Marauders, and more to come very soon. And so it's Magneto saying, dude, just chill and try to tell me what you want to tell me. But Havoc says no, and he walks away. Now, you do have Havoc call up Muir Island, and you would think, yeah, the X-Men are over there, because the last time we saw them, they were at Muir Island getting some training done, but allowing different members of their team to actually get healed up. And so Havoc calls over there to only have the phone be answered by Callisto, one of the members of the Morlocks, and she says, no, the X-Men are back in New York. Go talk to Magneto, and he'll help you get a hold of the X-Men. But Havoc already tried that and failed. And so he said, fine, you know what? What about Cyclops? Do you know where I can find my brother? Now, when it comes to Callisto, she's very rude, and she tells Havoc, listen, man, if you want to find your brother, look in the yellow pages, and just hangs the phone up on him. Now, when we jump back over to Polaris, she's still fighting against the Marauders, and she is struggling, but she's trying her best. And that is why I say, like, it's not a fair battle for her. You are talking about the idea of 4 or 5 different members of the Marauders coming after her at once. And on top of that, they were able to ambush her. She had no time to get properly prepared. And so, unfortunately, we're left to wonder, will she die or possibly get away? But we have to jump back over to Havoc, who is currently following Magneto. He is the only person who may know where the X-Men truly are. And so while you have Havoc following Magneto, they go into the subway tunnels. Now, every single step Magneto takes to make sure that no one is following him, Havoc is doing a good job hiding, and Havoc is also being able to find every single kind of secret door to continue to follow Magneto. But once he's able to get down to the lowest part of the subway tunnels, he does find the X-Men. And the problem is, though, the X-Men are talking about the idea of disappearing. Now, the reason why? Because of the Marauders. And let me explain. Back in the Mutant Massacre storyline, the Marauders' main goal at first was to go after the Morlocks. At the end of that storyline, Sabretooth did arrive at the X-Mansion and began to attack the different members of the X-Men. And so the Storm, she's kind of worried about the idea of the Marauders trying to come back to finish the job, because half their team is injured. Colossus, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat. The other half are still new. The only 2 members of the team who are technically, veterans are Wolverine and Storm. And so they're saying, we have to disappear. We have to make sure the world believes that we are truly dead until our team can, 1, get trained up, but 2, our team can get completely healed up as well. And Havoc cannot believe what he is hearing, except out of nowhere, someone begins to grab him from behind. which he does freak out and begin to fight against the X-Men. Now, once you have both sides being able to calm down, really thanks to Psylocke, we kind of find out that at the very beginning of this storyline, when it came to Havoc arriving at the mansion, they mind wiped him because back then they were already plotting the idea of disappearing to make sure the world had truly forgotten about them. And so when it came to Havoc walking in, they were like, hey, we got to make sure he also thinks we're dead or forgets about us, because when he hears the news we're dead, he will possibly just move on with his life. But now he's back here because Psylocke is still somewhat learning how to use her powers. But on top of that, Havoc was part of the X-Men. Charles taught Havoc how to fight against psychic attacks like Psylocke. And so he was able to remember to only come back here to this point. But you have Storm say, listen, we have a lot going on right now currently, and we felt like to protect you, but to also protect our plan, we made you forget. And Havoc says, that's not fair, because I was an X-Men before you were. And he's right, because right after the original 5, it was Polaris and Havoc. And then you have the new X-Men team come in. And so for Havoc, he says, I have the right to be part of the X-Men no matter what, and know what's going on with the X-Men no matter what. And so if you guys are going through something, then let me rejoin the team. And you have Magneto say, fine, if you're going to, you need to understand that right now, the world is having a lot of problems, and those problems are affecting the mutant race left and right. And so if you're going to join us, just know you are about to go down a dark path. But to end today's video, we jump back over to Polaris. Now, when it comes to Polaris, she's still fighting against the Marauders. Unfortunately, she does lose the battle to the Marauders, or really their 5th member who arrives a tad bit late, and that would be Malice. And remember, Malice has the ability to possess your body, and so currently she is possessing the body of Polaris, and now it seems like Polaris will be forced to work alongside the Marauders. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video, so please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.